News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Karen Moscow.
And I'm Alexis Christoforous. Here are the stories we're following today.
Alexis, the U.S. and Iran have reached a tentative agreement to extend their ceasefire by 60 days. Sources say further talks on Tehran's nuclear program would continue during the extension period. While the agreement has yet to be signed off by President Trump, the news has raised hopes that the three-month conflict could be nearing a resolution. Vice President J.D. Vance told reporters that progress is being made.
If you look at what we've already accomplished here, assuming that we're able to get to a final agreement here, we're reopening the Straits of Hormuz. We've already decimated their conventional military, and we're in a position where we can substantially set back their nuclear program, not just during the term of this president, but over the long term. That's a very, very good thing for the American people. So we're not there yet, but we're very close. We're going to keep on working at it.
Vice President J.D. Vance says Iran appears to be negotiating in good faith, and we get more on the deal with Bloomberg Middle East correspondent Jumana Bersecci.
Certainly, we've been here before. There have been multiple reports of the two sides edging closer and closer and closer to deal. The reaction in the market becomes less pronounced. I would say, though, that this time does feel a little bit different because you have so many Gulf Arab states also participating in the mediation attempts. And it seems as though, from the language of the likes of the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent overnight, J.D. Vance as well, that this time we really are very, very close.
Bloomberg Middle East correspondent Jumana Bersecci says the proposal would guarantee that shipping through the Strait of Hormuz remains unrestricted.
And Karen, that news has oil once again lower this morning. Right now, we've got Brent trading at $93.30 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude at $88.25 the barrel. Crude has weakened in May on speculation that some form of a peace deal would be reached between the U.S. and Iran. Brent is down about 19% this month. That's its biggest monthly drop since 2020.
Well, Alexis, we are following another developing story this morning. Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket has exploded in a massive fireball while undergoing a test on a Florida launch pad. It's a major setback for the Jeff Bezos-backed firm in its efforts to challenge SpaceX. Benedict Campbell is Bloomberg's managing editor for space and aviation.
No harm to human life, it should be said. So this happened during sort of the fueling sequence. They were preparing for a launch in the next couple of days. We've heard from Jeff Bezos, who's called it a very rough day, but he's also vowed to rebuild whatever was broken. He said it's worth it. It's a reminder that space is hard and getting rockets up there are complicated and things do go wrong.
And Bloomberg's Benedict Campbell says the firm was preparing the vehicle for its fourth launch, which was slated to deploy a batch of satellites for Amazon's LEO, a rival network to SpaceX's Starlink. None of the satellites were on the rocket when it exploded.
And Karen, Bloomberg News has learned SpaceX is cutting its valuation goal in its impending IPO. John Tucker joins us now with the very latest. Good morning, John.
Hey, good morning, Alexis. Yeah, it's a little more down to earth. Our sources tell us the company now targeting a valuation of $1.8 trillion. That's down from the $2 trillion the sources told us about last month. This target settling lower after consultations with advisors and investors. SpaceX is expected to start formal marketing of its IPO as soon as June 4th at a price as early as June 11th. Now, details of an IPO, like size and valuation, are typically adjusted ahead of the pricing based on feedback from stakeholders. The company still seeking to raise as much as $75 billion, which would make it the biggest IPO of all time. In New York, I'm John Tucker, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, John, thanks. Well, Anthropic says it's raised $65 billion in a funding round that now values the company at $965 billion, including the new investment. This valuation surpasses rival OpenAI's value for the first time.
And we turn now to the markets, where stocks begin the last trading day of the week at record highs. In fact, the S&P 500 is on track for its 9th consecutive week of gains. Daryl Cronk is Chief Investment Officer of Wealth and Investment at Wells Fargo.
Last 4 years, you've got earnings growth of almost 70%, and prices are up about 75%. So I do think if earnings can sustain here, that, along with the M&A cycle, we know the story on CapEx. We know what's coming in front of us in IPOs later this summer and into the fall. There's a lot of things that are triggering some pretty good signs here on the intermediate term.
Wells Fargo's Daryl Cronk. During this 9-week rally, the S&P 500 has gained 19%.
Well, Alexis, shares of Dell are soaring to an all-time high this morning. The stock up 38% in early trading. The hardware maker gave an outlook for annual sales that far surpassed analyst estimates. It's being fueled by demand for servers that power artificial intelligence work. Brody Ford covers Dell for Bloomberg.
Well, it's all about these servers, right? I think when some of us think about AI revenue, we think about people selling large language models, but it's a lot more than that, right? I mean, somebody needs to build those servers that go into data centers to train all those models and deploy all the applications. And Dell, a lot of us think of as the kind of boring laptops and computers, but they've managed to really reinvent themselves as physical infrastructure provider for the AI boom. And so, we're seeing some pretty comical revenue ramp here.
And Bloomberg's Brody Ford notes that ahead of this morning's surge, shares of Dell were already up more than 150% this year.
And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Alexis Christoforous.
I'm Karen Moscow, and this is Bloomberg.